Somewhere on Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, a volcano called Sheveluch erupted again this morning. It has been erupting every single day without stopping for 27 years. And today, it triggered the highest aviation alert that exists anywhere on Earth. At 03 UTC this morning, VAAC Tokyo issued advisory 2026-305. The ash column was confirmed at flight level 350. That is 35,000 feet. The exact altitude where passengers sit in pressurized cabins on flights from the United States to Japan, South Korea, and China. 6 days ago, a nearly identical eruption from this same volcano sent its ash cloud 1,500 miles east across the Bering Sea and into American airspace over Alaska. 10 Alaska Airlines flights were grounded. 1,100 passengers were stranded at Anchorage and Fairbanks airports on American soil. And today, the same volcano erupted again at the same altitude, with the ash moving westward at 30 knots on a path that aviation authorities are tracking right now. This is not a volcano that erupted once and made the news. This is not a random geological event. Something changed inside this mountain in December 2025 that nobody in mainstream coverage has explained. And that change is directly connected to why July 2026 has produced more high-level aviation alerts from this single volcano than any month in recent years. Today, we are going to break down exactly what happened this morning. We will explain what changed inside this volcano 7 months ago that made it more dangerous. We will walk through how a Russian eruption shut down American airports 6 days ago. And we will lay out what aviation scientists say comes next. Everything we cover today comes from confirmed official sources. VAAC Tokyo, VAAC Anchorage, KVERT, the Alaska Volcano Observatory at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, the peer-reviewed science. No speculation, no exaggeration. If you have ever flown from the west coast to Asia, your flight path passed within range of this volcano. Most passengers never know that. Did you? Drop a comment and tell us where you were flying to. If you want to understand the systems that affect your safety before the mainstream news notices them, subscribe now. We cover these events every week with the same depth you just saw in that opening. No panic, no sensationalism, only the confirmed facts explained clearly. At 0306 Coordinated Universal Time this morning, July 27th, 2026, the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center in Tokyo issued advisory number 2026-305. The advisory confirmed a fresh ash column rising from Sheveluch to flight level 350. Flight level 350 is the aviation term for 35,000 feet above sea level. That is not a number in a report. That is the exact altitude where a commercial airliner cruises with passengers strapped into pressurized cabins. The ash cloud is moving westward at 30 knots. 30 knots is about 35 miles per hour, and at that speed, the ash spreads across new sky faster than most people walk to their gate at an airport. VAAC Tokyo and VAAC Anchorage are coordinating on the tracking, which is standard when an eruption sits between two advisory zones. Both centers are pulling live imagery from the Himawari 9 satellite, a Japanese weather satellite that photographs the North Pacific every 10 minutes and can see an ash column the moment it clears the summit. The eruption today carries the aviation color code RED. Color code red is the highest of 4 warning levels used by volcano scientists to alert airlines. The 4 levels are green, yellow, orange, and red. Green means the volcano is quiet. Yellow means it is restless. Orange means an eruption is likely or minor activity is underway. Red means an eruption is happening right now and poses immediate danger to aircraft passing through the ash cloud. Yesterday's advisory told a different story. On July 26th, VAAC Tokyo issued Advisory 2026.299, which put the ash at flight level 250, that is 25,000 feet. Today's cloud is 10,000 feet higher than yesterday's. The sequence is not flattening, it is climbing. 1 week before that, on July the 20th, the same volcano pushed ash to flight level 400. That is 40,000 feet, moving eastward at 80 knots, or about 92 miles per hour. Inside a single month, this volcano has produced ash columns that range from 25,000 feet to 40,000 feet, all of it inside the altitude band where jets fly. The full July 2026 sequence in order looks like this. Eruptions on July 3rd, July 5th, July 16th, July 20th, July 21st, July 22nd, July 25th, July 26th, and again today, July 27th. That is 9 documented events in 27 days. At least 3 of them triggered red code advisories. This morning is not an isolated incident. It is the 9th chapter of a single unfolding sequence, and each chapter is being logged in real time by 2 international advisory centers, 1 Russian volcano observatory, and 1 American observatory watching from Alaska. To understand why this keeps happening, you have to understand what Sheveluch actually is. And once you do, you will never think about it the same way again. Sheveluch has been erupting without a break since August 1999. Think about what the world looked like in August 1999. The first iPod was still 2 years from release. Most people were still using dial-up internet at home. Everyone who was born on the day this eruption started is now old enough to have finished college. That is the timescale we are talking about. 27 years of continuous eruption. The Smithsonian Global Volcanism Program lists 103 documented major eruptions at Sheveluch. That is one of the most prolific eruption records of any volcano tracked anywhere on Earth. Most volcanoes on the planet have not produced 103 significant eruptions across their entire monitored history. Sheveluch has, and the counter is still climbing. The mountain itself stands 3,283 meters above sea level. That is 10,171 feet. Almost exactly 2 miles of solid rock before the eruption column even leaves the ground. On top of that 2-mile pedestal, this morning's ash added another 24,000 feet of vertical column into the atmosphere. The total volcanic structure holds an estimated 1,300 cubic kilometers of material. To put that in a shape you can picture, that is enough rock, ash, and lava to bury the entire state of Rhode Island under a layer more than 400 meters deep. This is not a small cone on the edge of a map. It is one of the largest volcanic structures on the entire Kamchatka Peninsula. At the summit sits a caldera 9 kilometers across. A caldera is the large bowl-shaped depression left behind when the top of a volcano collapses in on itself during an ancient eruption. 9 kilometers is about 5.5 miles. The city of San Francisco could sit inside that bowl with room left over on all sides. Inside that caldera, the current threat is growing. It is called a lava dome. A lava dome forms when the lava rising out of the vent is too thick and too slow to flow away. Instead of running downhill, it piles up on itself. It builds a growing mound of solid rock right on top of the vent. That mound acts like a lid, and the pressure from the magma below keeps building against the weight of that lid. When the dome becomes too heavy or too unstable, it falls apart suddenly. The scientists call this a dome collapse. In plain terms, the cap gives way, and the pressure that has been trapped underneath is released all at once. What follows is the most violent type of explosion this volcano produces. The last major collapse at Sheveluch happened in April 2023. That collapse destroyed a dome that had taken 42 years to grow. 42 years of slow accumulation, gone in a matter of minutes. And immediately after the April 2023 event, the volcano started building a new one. By the middle of 2026, that new dome was large enough to be driving the current eruption sequence. All of this is being watched by a Russian science team called KVERT. KVERT is short for the Kamchatkan Volcanic Eruption Response Team. Their job is to watch Sheveluch and the other volcanoes on the peninsula around the clock, and to send immediate warnings to governments and airlines the moment an eruption begins. KVERT is the reason the world knew about this morning's eruption within minutes. Now look at where Sheveluch sits on the map. The volcano stands on the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Russian Far East. From its summit, it is roughly 1,500 miles across the open ocean to Alaska's western coast. When Sheveluch erupts, the prevailing winds pick up its ash cloud and push it directly into the busiest air corridor that connects North America to Asia. And that geography is exactly why what happened 6 days ago matters to every American who has ever booked a flight to the other side of the world. 6 days ago at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, a passenger walked up to a gate for an Alaska Airlines flight and was told the flight was canceled. There was no storm outside. The runway was clear. The aircraft was at the gate. The passenger asked why. The gate agent said the words most Americans have never heard applied to a domestic flight. Volcanic ash. The volcano was not in Alaska. It was 1,500 miles away, on the other side of the Bering Sea, on Russian soil. Here is what happened. On July 21, 2026, at approximately 22 Coordinated Universal Time, Sheveluch erupted. The ash column climbed to 35,000 feet, the same altitude as today's cloud. The ash reached the jet stream and got caught. The jet stream is a fast-moving river of air that flows high in the atmosphere, thousands of feet above the ground, moving from west to east at speeds that regularly exceed 100 miles per hour. When ash enters that river, it does not drift. It races. The July 22nd ash cloud moved northeast at 100 knots. That is more than 115 miles per hour. In the time it takes to fly from Seattle to Anchorage, this ash cloud crossed 1,500 miles of open Pacific Ocean. Los Angeles to Denver is roughly the same distance. Imagine an ash cloud leaving Los Angeles at breakfast and darkening the sky over Denver before lunch. By July 22nd, the ash had entered Alaskan airspace. Alaska Airlines canceled 10 flights across the state. 1,100 passengers were directly affected. That number was confirmed by an Alaska Airlines spokesperson. Alaska Airlines flight 7011 from Anchorage to Nome was among the flights grounded. 2 U.S. airports absorbed the disruption: Ted Stevens Anchorage International and Fairbanks International. You may be wondering why airlines take volcanic ash so seriously. Volcanic ash is not soft, like the ash from a campfire. It is made of microscopic fragments of glass and rock. Inside a jet engine, the temperatures are hot enough to melt that ash. Once melted, the material resolidifies on the turbine blades as a coating of glass. That coating can cause a complete engine failure in flight. The ash also sandblasts cockpit windshields until pilots cannot see out of them. There is a documented history behind that fear. In 1989, a KLM Boeing 747 flew into an ash cloud from Alaska's Mount Redoubt volcano. All 4 engines shut down. The aircraft fell more than 14,000 feet before the crew managed to restart the engines and land safely. Every airline operating in the North Pacific remembers that flight. Every dispatcher does. That is why 10 Alaska Airlines flights sat on the ground 6 days ago. The route the ash follows is called the North Pacific Air Corridor. In plain terms, it is the flight highway that hundreds of aircraft use every day traveling between North America and Asia. The shortest routes from Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Anchorage to Tokyo, Seoul, Beijing, and Shanghai all pass directly over or within range of the Kamchatka Peninsula. If you have flown from the West Coast to Asia, your aircraft has flown this corridor. Japan Airlines has issued similar disruption notices for North American and European routes during earlier Sheveluch eruptions. This is not a one airline problem. It is a corridor problem, and it affects every major carrier flying the Pacific. A coordinating scientist at the Alaska Volcano Observatory, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, confirmed after the July 22nd event that more ash disruption is possible, depending on the size of each new eruption and the direction of the wind that day. That is the honest position. The volcano is active. The winds decide who gets hit. Today's ash cloud from this morning's eruption is moving westward at 30 knots. 6 days ago, the cloud moved northeast toward Alaska. Today, it is moving in the opposite direction, away from American airspace and toward Russian and Japanese air routes. That is a very different direction, and it means today's cloud may not reach Alaska at all. But wind patterns at 35,000 feet can shift within hours. One change in the upper atmosphere and the same ash could turn back toward the American corridor. That is what the Alaska Volcano Observatory is watching for right now. If this happened 6 days ago and the same volcano just erupted again at the same intensity this morning, the next question is obvious. What are scientists actually seeing inside this crater right now? But here is the part of this story that mainstream coverage has not reported at all, and it changes everything about how we should be reading what happened this July. In December 2025, something changed inside the Sheveluch crater. A second lava dome began growing on the western part of the crater floor. Before December 2025, there was one active lava dome on this volcano. It sat on the northern part of the crater floor and had been growing steadily since April 2023. Now, there are 2 active domes. 2 independent mounds of thick lava piling up in the same crater, 2 independent pressure chambers building beneath them, 2 independent triggers for a possible collapse. 2 active domes do not simply double the risk, they multiply it. A collapse of one dome can structurally destabilize the other, because the entire crater floor is a single connected system. When one side gives way, the ground beneath the other side shifts. That is the mechanism KVERT and the Russian Institute of Volcanology and Seismology are watching every day. The problem with the dome collapse mechanism is speed. It produces the largest and most violent eruptions this volcano is capable of, but it operates faster than seismometers can reliably detect. A seismometer is an instrument that measures ground vibrations. In many volcanic systems, rising magma sends warning tremors through the rock for hours or days before an eruption. A dome collapse is different. It can begin and complete inside a window too narrow for a useful public warning. In many cases, the instruments only confirm what is happening as it is already happening. KVERT is tracking the growth rate and the thermal output of both domes using satellite imagery on every clear day. A daily thermal anomaly is being detected on both dome surfaces. In plain terms, both domes are hot, both are actively venting heat, and both are actively growing. To understand what a full collapse could produce, look at what happened at this same volcano in April 2023. That collapse is the benchmark. The April 2023 eruption pushed a plume 20 kilometers into the atmosphere. That is 65,600 feet. Nearly double the height of this morning's ash column. The resulting ash cloud covered approximately 108,000 square kilometers. That is roughly the combined land area of Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. Imagine 3 states going dark under falling ash inside a matter of hours. In the town of Kluchi, 50 kilometers from the crater, 8.5 centimeters of ash fell on the streets and rooftops. That is 3.3 inches. 3 inches of ash is heavy enough to collapse the roofs of lightweight buildings, block every road, destroy crops in the field, and contaminate the water supply. Breathing outside without a mask becomes dangerous. The 2023 eruption also discharged approximately 200,000 tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Sulfur dioxide is a toxic gas that volcanoes release during major eruptions. When it reaches high altitudes, it can block incoming sunlight. measurably lower temperatures across wide regions of the planet, and fall back to Earth as acid rain that damages crops, forests, and drinking water. The April 2023 collapse also generated pyroclastic flows. A pyroclastic flow is not lava. It is faster than lava. It is a river of superheated gas, ash, and rock fragments that pours down the slopes at hundreds of miles per hour. Nothing in its path survives. The April 2023 flows reached 25 to 30 kilometers from the summit. That is roughly 15 to 19 miles of destruction radiating out from the crater in every downhill direction. The April 2023 dome that produced all of this had taken 42 years to grow. The explosion destroyed it in minutes. Alaska Airlines canceled 23 flights during the April 2023 event. 6 days ago, in July 2026, the same airline canceled 10 flights. The pattern is direct. The larger the eruption in Kamchatka, the larger the American disruption at Anchorage and Fairbanks. At the base of the mountain sits Kluchi. The town is home to about 5,000 people. It has one main road out. That road can be blocked by a lahar. A lahar is a volcanic mudflow that forms when hot ash and rock mix with water, either from melting snow on the summit or from a nearby river. Lahars move faster than people can run and set like wet concrete when they stop. If both domes on Sheveluch produced a coordinated collapse today, the road out of Kluchi could be closed before an evacuation order was fully received. As of this morning, July 27, 2026, no civilian evacuation is currently ordered for Kluchi or the surrounding villages. Russian authorities are monitoring the situation. Aviation restrictions are in place. Ground-level restrictions are not. The honest scientific position tonight is this. Both domes are growing. The eruptions are increasing in frequency this month, and no instrument on Earth can tell us when the next collapse will come or how large it will be when it does. And that brings us to the question that this morning's eruption makes impossible to ignore. 6 days ago, a passenger at Anchorage Airport sat in a plastic chair by a canceled gate and waited for a rebooking. She spent the afternoon watching the departure board flip flights to canceled one after another. By the evening, she had a hotel voucher and a new itinerary for the next morning. Her worst inconvenience was one lost day of vacation. At the same time, only 1,500 miles away, a resident of Kluchi walked home from work under a sky that has been dusted by ash so many times that the townspeople no longer flinch. His house sits 50 kilometers from a crater that holds 2 active lava domes. His town has one road out, and that road runs across ground that a lahar can close in minutes. He does not have a rebooking. He has a mountain. Both of these people are affected by the same volcano this week. One lost an afternoon. The other lives inside the worst case radius every day, permanently. The difference between those two experiences is the dome holding. Here is what makes this story worth telling. The warning systems already exist. VAAC Tokyo, VAAC Anchorage, KVERT, and the Alaska Volcano Observatory all publish their advisories in real time. The data is not hidden. It is public. It updates within minutes of every eruption. What is missing is not information. What is missing is the connection between the data and the passenger in the plastic chair. Most of the 100 travelers stranded 6 days ago had no idea before they arrived at the airport that a volcano on the other side of an ocean had anything to do with their flight. That gap between what the scientists know and what the traveler knows is the gap this channel exists to close. Now, a question for you. Have you ever had a flight canceled or delayed by something you did not expect and only later found out it was connected to a natural event you had never heard of before that day? A volcanic ash cloud, a solar storm knocking out radio communication, an earthquake at the destination airport, a weather system that formed over open ocean. Drop the story in the comments. Tell us where you were flying and what you found out afterward. Real stories from real travelers help every other viewer read the next disruption faster. If you want to keep seeing aviation and geological hazard coverage explained in plain English before the mainstream news picks it up, subscribe. This channel covers the systems that quietly affect your travel, your power grid, and your safety, and it explains them in the same detail you just heard tonight. And if you know someone who flies the Pacific Corridor for work, send them this video. The next advisory could be theirs.